August, 480 BC. A narrow mountain pass in northern Greece. On one side, the Aegean Sea crashes against jagged cliffs. On the other, sheer rock walls rise toward the sky. Between them, a passage barely wide enough for a single wagon. This is Thermopylae, the Hot Gates. And for 3 days, it will become the most famous killing ground in human history. Marching toward this pass is the largest army the ancient world has ever seen. Perhaps 100,000 to 150,000 Persian soldiers, maybe more. They come from every corner of the known world: Medes, Bactrians, Indians, Egyptians, and the elite immortals, the Persian Empire's unstoppable shock troops. Leading them is Xerxes I, King of Kings, ruler of an empire that stretches from Egypt to India. He has already burned cities, enslaved nations, and conquered peoples who thought themselves unconquerable. Now he comes for Greece. Standing in his way are approximately 7,000 Greek soldiers, led by 300 Spartans and their king, Leonidas. The Greeks know they cannot win, but they don't need to win. They only need to hold. To understand Thermopylae, you must understand what's at stake. 10 years earlier, in 490 BC, Persia invaded Greece for the first time. They landed at Marathon with 25,000 men, expecting an easy conquest of the fractured Greek city-states. Instead, 10,000 Athenian hoplites, heavily armored infantry fighting in disciplined formation, crushed the Persian army in a single afternoon. It was a humiliation that Persia would not forget. Now, a decade later, Xerxes has returned with an army that dwarfs Marathon. Ancient sources claim absurd numbers, over 1 million men, but modern historians estimate between 100,000 and 150,000 soldiers, supported by a massive fleet of warships. It's still the largest invasion force the Mediterranean world has ever seen. The Persian strategy is simple: march south through Greece, crushing any resistance, and force the Greek city-states into submission. Most will surrender without a fight. Those who resist will be made examples. But there's a problem: geography. Greece is a land of mountains, narrow valleys, and treacherous coastlines. The Persians can't simply sweep across the countryside with their superior numbers. They must funnel through choke points, and the Greeks know every one of them. The most critical choke point is Thermopylae, the gateway to central Greece. If the Persians take Thermopylae, the road to Athens lies open. If the Greeks hold it, even for a few days, it buys precious time for the Greek fleet to engage the Persian navy and for the city-states to organize a defense. The Greek alliance, led by Sparta and Athens, debates their strategy. Some want to fall back, to defend the Isthmus of Corinth and let northern Greece burn. Others argue that abandoning their allies will fracture the alliance before it even begins. King Leonidas of Sparta offers a compromise. He will take a small force to Thermopylae and hold the pass. Not forever. That would be impossible, but long enough to matter. He selects 300 Spartan warriors, all of them fathers with living sons, so that their family lines will continue after they die. With them come approximately 7,000 allies from various Greek states: Thespians, Thebans, Arcadians, and others. They march north, knowing exactly what awaits them. To understand why 300 Spartans could hold against an empire, you must understand what a Spartan warrior truly was. Sparta was not a normal Greek city-state. It was a military machine, a society built entirely around war. From age 7, Spartan boys were taken from their families and placed in the agoge, a brutal state-run training program that lasted until they were 30. They learned to endure pain, hunger, and hardship. They slept in barracks, fought each other daily, and were punished severely for showing weakness. The result was the most feared infantry in the ancient world. A Spartan hoplite wore approximately 70 pounds of bronze armor, a full-faced helmet, a breastplate covering his torso, greaves protecting his shins, and a massive round shield, the hoplon, nearly 3 feet in diameter. He carried a spear 8 feet long and a short sword as backup. But the real weapon wasn't the spear. It was the phalanx. The phalanx was a formation of overlapping shields, spears bristling forward like the quills of a porcupine. Each man protected the soldier beside him, creating a wall of bronze and iron that advanced in lockstep, grinding forward with disciplined, mechanical precision. Breaking a Spartan phalanx was like trying to break a stone wall with your bare hands. And at Thermopylae, the pass was so narrow that only a few dozen men could fight side by side at once. The Persians' numerical advantage meant nothing. Xerxes had brought an army to fight in open plains. Instead, he would have to feed his soldiers into a meat grinder, a few dozen at a time, against the most disciplined infantry on earth. When Leonidas and his 7,000 Greeks arrive at Thermopylae, they immediately begin fortifying the position. The pass itself is barely 50 feet wide at its narrowest point, a gap between the mountains and the sea. The Greeks rebuild an old wall across it, stacking stones chest-high, creating a defensive position that funnels attackers into a killing zone. Behind the wall, the Greeks dig in. Leonidas stations his Spartans at the narrowest point. The other Greek contingents spread along the flanks and in reserve. Scouts are sent into the mountains to watch for flanking routes. Then they wait. The Persian army arrives like a rolling thunderstorm, filling the horizon. For days they make camp, a vast city of tents stretching as far as the eye can see. Cook fires light up the night. The sound of thousands of men, horses, and wagons creates a constant roar. Xerxes sends scouts forward to observe the Greek position. They return with strange reports. The Spartans, they say, are exercising, combing their long hair, laughing. Xerxes doesn't understand. These men are about to die, and they're grooming themselves. What he doesn't know is that this is Spartan custom. Before battle, Spartan warriors prepare themselves as if going to a festival. They oil their skin, comb their hair, and check their equipment with the calm confidence of men who have already accepted death. Xerxes waits 4 days, expecting the Greeks to flee. They don't. Finally, on the 5th day, he sends envoys to Leonidas with an offer. Surrender your weapons, and you may leave in peace. Leonidas's response becomes legendary. Molon Labe, come and take them. On the morning of the first battle, Xerxes orders forward his Median and Sicyan troops, thousands of soldiers from the eastern provinces of his empire, lightly armored and carrying wicker shields, short spears, and bows. They advance confidently, certain that their numbers will overwhelm the Greeks. But as they enter the narrow pass, everything changes. The front ranks of Persians slam into the Greek phalanx like waves hitting a cliff. Spartan spears punch through wicker shields, through linen armor, through flesh. The weight of the bronze-clad Greeks drives forward, shields locked, an unstoppable wall of metal and muscle. The Persians have nowhere to maneuver. The pass is too narrow. They can't flank, can't surround, can't use their superior numbers. All they can do is die. The Spartans fight in rotating shifts, fresh warriors stepping forward as others fall back to rest. It's methodical, efficient, brutal. Persian bodies pile up at the wall. Blood turns the ground slick. By midday, the Medes and Sicilians have been shattered. Survivors stumble back to the Persian lines, broken and demoralized. Xerxes watches in disbelief. His army, which has conquered nations, has been stopped by a few thousand Greeks. He orders forward more troops. Fresh units charge the pass, wave after wave, and each time the result is the same. The Greek phalanx holds. Spears rise and fall, shields lock together. The mountain of corpses grows higher. As the sun sets on the first day, the pass is still held. The Persians have lost thousands. The Greeks, perhaps a few dozen. On the second day, Xerxes unleashes his elite forces, the immortals. They are called this because their unit is always kept at exactly 10,000 men. When one falls, another immediately takes his place, as if they can never truly die. These are the best soldiers Persia has, They wear scale armor, carry spears and bows, and have never known defeat. They are Xerxes' answer to the Spartans, disciplined, professional, unstoppable. Surely the king believes they will break the Greeks. The immortals advance in perfect formation, their armor glittering in the morning sun. They move with confidence, with discipline, with the certainty of victory. And then they hit the Spartan line. What follows is a grinding, desperate melee. The immortals are good, perhaps the best, infantry in the Persian army. But they are not Spartans. The Greek phalanx doesn't break. Spears find gaps in Persian armor. Shields deflect blows. When a Spartan falls, another steps forward to take his place, just as the Persians do. But there's a crucial difference. The Spartans have been training for this since they were 7 years old. The immortals, for all their skill, are fighting in terrain that negates their advantages and amplifies their weaknesses. At one point, the Spartans execute a brilliant tactical maneuver. They pretend to break and retreat, drawing the immortals forward into the pass. The Persians, thinking they've won, surge ahead, and the Spartans suddenly wheel around, shields snapping back into formation, and butcher the disorganized Persians who rushed ahead. It's a masterclass in disciplined warfare. By the end of the second day, the immortals have been mauled, not destroyed. They're too well trained for that, but bloodied, exhausted, and unable to break through. Xerxes is furious. 2 days, and his unstoppable army has been held at bay by a force a fraction of its size. But on the night of the second day, everything changes. A local Greek traitor named Ephialtes comes to the Persian camp. He knows a mountain path, the Thermopylae trail, that winds through the hills and emerges behind the Greek position. For his betrayal, he asks for gold. Xerxes gives it to him. On the morning of the third day, Leonidas receives devastating news. A Persian force, guided by Ephialtes, has flanked the Greek position. They've destroyed the small Greek contingent, guarding the mountain path, and are now marching down to encircle the defenders at Thermopylae. The battle is over. The Greeks have lost. Leonidas calls a council of war. The situation is clear. They can retreat now and save most of the army, or they can stay and die. Most of the Greek allies choose to retreat. There's no shame in this. They've already fought bravely for 2 days, and staying means certain death with no hope of victory. But the Spartans stay. So do the Thespians, 700 men who refuse to abandon their Spartan brothers. And the Thebans, though some historians suspect they were kept as hostages rather than volunteers. In total, perhaps 1,500 to 2,000 Greeks remain to face the final Persian assault. Leonidas knows exactly what he's doing. His mission was never to win. It was to buy time. Time for the Greek fleet to engage the Persians at Artemisium. Time for Athens to evacuate. Time for the Greek alliance to prepare. He's bought that time. 2 full days. Now comes the price. As dawn breaks on the third day, the Greeks abandon the wall and advance into the wider part of the pass. They will not hide behind fortifications today. They will meet the Persians in the open, fighting as warriors should. The Persians attack from both sides now, from the front and from behind, where the flanking force has emerged. The Greeks form a circle, shields facing outward, spears bristling in all directions, and they fight. For hours they hold, Spartans and Thespians shoulder to shoulder, cutting down Persians by the dozen, by the 100. When their spears shatter, they draw their swords. When their swords break, they fight with their shields, with their fists, with anything they can use as a weapon. Leonidas falls in the fighting, killed by Persian arrows and spears. The Spartans fight desperately to recover his body, knowing that to leave their king's corpse on the field would be the ultimate dishonor. 4 times they drive the Persians back. 4 times they recover Leonidas's body, fighting over his corpse like lions over a kill. But there are too many Persians. The circle grows smaller. Men fall and are not replaced. The Persians, finally learning, stop charging into the Greek formation. Instead, They pull back and unleash volley after volley of arrows. The Greeks, exhausted and with no room to maneuver, huddle behind their shields as the sky darkens with shafts. One by one, they fall. The last Spartans die on a small hill, surrounded by thousands of dead Persians, their shields shattered, their weapons broken, their bodies pierced by dozens of arrows. By midday, it's over. Every Spartan is dead. Every Thespian is dead. The Thebans who survived mostly surrendered. Xerxes walks the battlefield afterward, staring at the carnage. He orders his men to find Leonidas's body. When they do, Xerxes, in a rage at the losses his army has suffered, orders the Spartan king's head cut off and his body crucified. It's an act of disrespect that shocks even his own men. To mutilate a warrior's corpse, especially one who fought so bravely, violates the customs of war. But Xerxes doesn't care. Leonidas has cost him dearly. Modern estimates suggest the Persians lost anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 men over 3 days at Thermopylae, killed by a force that numbered less than 10% of their total strength. Thermopylae was a military defeat. The Persians broke through. The Greeks retreated. Xerxes marched south and burned Athens to the ground. But it was also the turning point of the war. The 3 days bought at Thermopylae gave the Greek fleet time to engage the Persian navy at Artemisium, and later, decisively, at Salamis. The naval victories cut off Persian supply lines and trapped Xerxes' army in hostile territory. The delay allowed the Greek city-states to unite, to coordinate, to prepare, and most importantly, Thermopylae became a symbol. News of the 300 Spartans spread across Greece like wildfire. These men, who could have fled, who could have surrendered, chose to stand and die so that Greece might live. It galvanized the Greeks. It shamed those who had considered surrender. It proved that the Persians could bleed, that they could be fought, that they were not invincible. The following year, at the Battle of Plataea, a united Greek army, inspired by the sacrifice at Thermopylae, destroyed the Persian land forces in Greece. Xerxes retreated back to Persia, his invasion a failure. Greece remained free, and 300 Spartans, who died on a narrow mountain pass, became immortal. The legacy, why Thermopylae still matters. Thermopylae wasn't the largest battle in ancient history. It wasn't even the most strategically important battle of the Persian Wars, but it endures because it represents something fundamental about human courage. The Spartans at Thermopylae knew they were going to die. They weren't naive. They weren't foolish. They understood the mathematics of the situation. But they also understood something deeper, that some things are worth dying for. The survival of their families, the freedom of their homeland, the idea that a citizen has the right to govern himself rather than kneel before a king. These 300 men, products of a brutal and often cruel society, chose to lay down their lives so that a fragile experiment called democracy might survive. They held the pass not because they thought they could win, but because someone had to. And in doing so, they changed the course of Western civilization. If Thermopylae had fallen on the first day, if the Greeks had retreated without a fight, the Persian fleet would have had free rein. The Greek alliance might have crumbled. Athens might have surrendered. Western philosophy, democracy, drama, science, all of it might have been strangled in its cradle. Instead, 300 Spartans and their allies stood in a narrow pass and said, "No further." For 3 days, they held the gates of hell. And when they died, they didn't die as victims. They died as heroes, and legends are made of such men. Years later, the Greeks erected a monument at Thermopylae. On it was inscribed a simple epitaph written by the poet Simonides. "Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. No boasting, no claims of glory, just a statement of fact. They did their duty, and they died doing it." That monument still stands today, a reminder that 2,500 years ago, in a place called the Hot Gates, A small group of men proved that courage, discipline, and sacrifice can hold back empires. The Spartans didn't win at Thermopylae, but their defeat echoes through history, louder than 1,000 victories. August, 480 BC. 300 Spartans stood in a mountain pass and told an empire, "No." For 3 days they held. Every one of them died. And in dying, they saved Western civilization. Thermopylae wasn't just a battle. It was the moment the world learned that free men, fighting for their homes, are worth 10 times their number in slaves fighting for a king. The 300 didn't just hold the pass. They held the line between tyranny and freedom, and that line has never been forgotten.